me a minute here just to kind of get everything fired up properly. Like I said, we're also live on YouTube, just trying this out to see how it goes. But yeah, so the Emerald tablets. Oh yeah. Well, do you want to do a recap of that? Yeah, I'd be more than happy. We did finish that. So, for everybody on YouTube, if you're watching this later, we on TikTok have been covering the Emerald tablets of Thoth. Thoth is an Egyptian god, but is also referred to in the Roman pantheon and in Greek mythology known as Hermes and as Mercury. So yeah, you get my print. Yeah, sorry. So for the last couple days on TikTok Live, if you're not following me there, go ahead and follow me on TikTok. We've been talking about the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, but we've also been reading from the Gnostic texts from the Nag Hammadi. So that's something. If that's something that you're interested in, I would encourage you to go back to my TikTok and we talk about those things. But let's talk about a summary of the Emerald Tablets. So, when we read about it on Wikipedia, it basically talked about that it was an ancient Hebrew text, right? And it's kind of like got its roots in Hebrew mysticism, which means that it's on the more mystical side of religion. And so, does that change anything? No, it just means that it's not quite. The Emerald Tablets don't really have a home. They were kind of a mystery when they were found, and they've pretty much been a mystery ever since. So what I think is important to realize is that what we read in Emerald Tablets of Thoth is very similar to what we read in these Gnostic texts, right? Like we read the Secret Book of John, we were reading on the origins of the world. It's kind of this very cryptic message that is hidden in these tablets, right? I refer to it as kind of like what do you call it? That movie Inception, right? It's like meaning within meaning within meaning. Like they're telling a story of people, but the story of these people has its own meaning, and that we see that parallel to ancient Sumeria, right? In those stories, right? Like the story of the Anunnaki, the story of the Epic of Gilgamesh. There's hidden symbolism in these stories, and that's the point, right? That is the premise of occultism, and that's where that comes from. So, but the Emerald Tablets themselves, the thing that makes it different, the thing that's unique about it, is the fact that Thoth at the beginning says that he is the Atlantean king, or a Atlantean king, and tells the story of Atlantis. Doesn't really get into much detail about it, but does nonetheless talk about Atlantis. And then they talk about how when Atlantis fell, they went to Kem. And we know Kem, or the translation of that is the land of Kem, which is the land of the hairy barbarians. So, who knows what that actually means? If that's true or not, is it a translation problem? Who really knows? But I do think that it's fascinating nonetheless. I think that reading from these things gives us more insight than what we could possibly imagine. And for anybody watching this on YouTube right now, I'm reading from my TikTok live chat. So if you hear me answering questions, that's why. So there's 6 tablets. We're reading the 6 tablets. And basically what do we hear a lot of? We hear a lot of this idea of going to the light away from the darkness, right? And in religion, in mythology, there's this recurring theme about like positive and negative, or darkness and light. And what does that all mean, right? We in the chat have been talking about this for a while now, that it's more than likely a reference to consciousness, right? And then when you start reading things like this book, right? Your hair's fine when you need your brain. Yeah. This book here, The Second Coming of Christ by Yogananda. Okay. This book is a 2-volume series. It's about 700 to 800 pages each. And I'll tell you some of the things that are on the back of this. So some of the things that this book covers is baptism, forgiveness of sins, and being born again, the Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Ghost, and the role of Satan, karma and reincarnation, heaven and hell, how to pray, using the healing power of thought and life force, the methods by which every soul can attain Christ consciousness. Okay, so The whole point here again, right? We've made several mentions to Christ consciousness, right? In the secret book of John, when the story is being told, what we hear there is Jesus is telling John about Genesis, the story of Genesis, but it's backwards, right? Anybody that was here for that, they'll remember in the story, the secret book of John, the way that Jesus tells John about Genesis, it's backwards. It's not God actually creating Adam and Eve, it's actually Satan or Yaldabaoth. Yaldabaoth creates Adam and Eve, and that's where all of these problems come from. So it's a very different telling of Genesis, but it makes, I mean, in my opinion, it makes more sense. It has more depth to it. And that book that I was just talking about, it makes mention of all of this stuff. So you got to wonder, Yogananda was around, God, I think in like the 40s and 50s. And he was very popular in America. I mean, like he was popular and unpopular. He did create his own fellowship here. But there were a lot of people who were very skeptical of him. So I think that it's fair to say that he had fans and he had enemies. But the point of that is that this guy, Yogananda from India, who practiced Hinduism, how does he know these things about Jesus, right? Where do these teachings of Jesus come from? And we hear all these different stories and angles that Jesus went to India, or Jesus, was doing work in the Library of Alexandria, whatever it is. We hear these stories all the time, but there's just not a lot of stuff to back it up. But if you use common sense, it does seem that maybe Jesus did go to India and Tibet. He learned what he knew somewhere. Okay. And I am hard pressed to believe that Jesus just magically, like the God capital G, gave Jesus some kind of special insight and wisdom. But like, if that happened, why don't we read about that in the Bible? Right? Like, why isn't there a section in the Bible that talks about that? If that was what happened, right? Like we hear about the baptism and the Spirit comes into Jesus. You claim Jesus to be a man, if that's the case. Yeah, and I think he is. But so the comment in the chat says you claim Jesus to be a man, if that's the case. And I do think that's the case. I think we're all the same. I've been advocating that for a long time now. I think what Jesus was here to do was to tell us who we are. Not to say that I'm the only one, not to come here and say I am above all of you. I think he came here to say that you are my brothers and sisters, and what I can do, you can do too. That's weird. I'm sorry. That's the present motive. Jesus came proclaiming the Father's kingdom that was given by God. Yeah, but again, so the question here, or the comment here, says Jesus came proclaiming the Father's kingdom, and that was given by God. Listen, you're not wrong, but I think that there's a misinterpretation happening there, right? Like, translation is happening in the Bible between Greek, Egyptian, and Hebrew. It's possible that some of these things aren't 100% what they're supposed to be because of translation problems. Just like that famous line where it says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, right? There's other translations that say my teachings are the way and the life, right? And that's two very different things, right? Like, again, like none come unto the Father but through me, or is it none come unto the Father but through my teachings? Now, I am not, I'm not as well versed as like a 50-year theology professor, but I've done my homework. And I've read, and these things, like reading things like the Bhagavad Gita, reading things like this, the second coming of Christ. This has helped me understand a different lens of Christianity. Okay. It doesn't mean that any one particular version of Christianity is correct or incorrect. It's giving me more to work with. Typical Republican man says, what happened with the beard? Man, I had to trim it up. I had to fresh, get a little fresh. I think everybody can use that from time to time. But how's everybody feeling? How's everybody feeling this evening? Does anybody connect with what I'm talking about? Looks good though. Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. I want people to take me seriously, so I kind of realized that big bushy beard I had may have made me look a little like a out there hippie. I connect with what you say. That's good. And it's frustrating and it's challenging because this stuff is not easy to talk about. Like, it's not easy to talk about the fact that I believe personally that Jesus went to India and Tibet. You know, or maybe he didn't go anywhere. Maybe he just learned these things from the Library of Alexandria. Um, who knows? And again, what happened to the Library of Alexandria? It was burned to the ground. Um, I just think that there's things that we still don't know that we could learn from. You know what I mean? I think that there's still more work to do. And what I've been working with lately is my connection to spirituality and knowledge and intellectualism. I've been studying psychology and trying to learn and understand psychology more. Same thing with philosophy, because I think that there has to be a balance, right? And we see this with people who are all in on the spiritual thing. And I was listening to Jordan Peterson's podcast where they were talking about this, where there's, people who don't like dogma and then they adopt spirituality instead of religion. And then there are people who are strictly dogma religious people who, either they're hardcore Christian or hardcore Buddhist or whatever, right? And that means that they stick within the parameters of the religion that they adopt. Now, that's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's just an observation. But the people who tend to go to the more spiritual side of things instead of a religious, like dogmatic thing, oh, hey, guys, let's don't call other people's religions, like, we're not here to like bash on other people, okay? Like, Saint Lane, I don't think that that's an awesome comment. Like, let's keep it real, okay? Like, we don't want to have to ban anybody. It's nonsense. A name is a name. Yeah, but like, we're here to be productive. This is an academic conversation. We don't need any nonsense. So anyways, I think that the point is here is that we need balance, right? We can't just live in the spiritual world and allow that all of that to be what it is, because what ends up happening is we kind of it can be harder to stay in touch with reality and be connected to what's going on around us, right? Like, I went through a phase, like a hermit phase, where my whole life was spiritual and everything was spiritual, but I got really tired. Got really tired of dealing with people. It was really hot, like really hard to stay connected to that spiritual place when, I'm going to work and no, I just don't want you to be offensive to other people. You know what I mean? I just don't, keep your opinions are fine, but like, just make sure that you're not trying to insult other people or, call other people's religions nonsense, because all religions have importance. They're all there to teach us something. So we're all here to learn. So anyways, that's why I think we need balance, right? Like, I don't want to just be a spiritual person. I want to also understand the sciences. Hey, D'Angelo, I want to understand science. I want to understand psychology, because here's the thing, and this is why I love Buddhism. Buddhism is the religion of psychology. It is not about God. It is about the mind. It is about learning psychology. It is learning the psyche. And that's what I love about Buddhism. So that's why things like this, Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, I've really been thoroughly enjoying this book. And it's got some really great things in here that I think that every person can learn from, because it's not going to, listen, for people who are really like strict, devout, religious or spiritual people, I think that what can tend to happen is we live in these religious environments where we don't question anything, right? And that's how, in my personal opinion, the Christian religion has been misled. Really any religion, all religions have good intentions, but the people who lead them can lead people into problems. All right, I'm gonna pause here. So, you believe in afterlife, though, or no? Only just actual helping. You're not talking to angels. Yeah, no. Do I believe in the afterlife? Now, it just depends what you mean by afterlife. I don't know, right? I think that's part of it, right? Like, we don't know until we've had that experience. But I don't think it matters. it's fun to speculate, and it'll be the ever-pervading question for as long as we're alive. What happens? But this is where psychology has helped me, and Buddhism has helped me. In Buddhism, one of the things that we learn is that there's three things that are true about life, which is that life is suffering, life is sickness and pain, and life is death. And you will die. What do you think about Taoism? I love Taoism. I really do. I wish I had a way, or I wish there was like a temple nearby where I could go and learn more about it. But for now, I just have books. But I love Taoism. I love Zen. Love Buddhism. If I had to give myself any religion, I would be a Christian, Zen, Buddhist, Taoist. I don't know, something to that effect. Just because those are the ones that really connect with me. I feel, I have had psychedelic experiences where I felt very one with nature, and I feel that connectedness that everybody talks about, that oneness. And so that makes sense to me. And then the things about Zen, people try to make that, that ideology or philosophy out to be something so hard to understand, but it's really not. Zen is simple. And the easiest way to describe Zen is in one of these proverbs, which is, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Right? You're already enlightened. It's just a matter of realizing it. There is no trick. You already are. Do you know about Stoicism? Yes. I believe that the philosophers were no different than the gurus of India or the Zen masters in Japan. I think that it's the same thing. They're all talking about the same thing. They're talking about your conscious mind. They're talking about being self-realized beings. And that's the key. It doesn't matter which side of the world you come from, they're all trying to tell you the same thing. The Zen masters tell you in kind of a more cryptic way, and the philosophers try to tell you in a way that would be deemed more like psychology today. I consider myself Gnostic personally. Yeah, Gnosticism's great. I love Gnosticism. I believe God helps no one, only you. Do you mean you as in yourself, or God, or as in me, like me personally? It's either God, I'm God living a human experience, or God is creator. Why can't it be both? So that's so somebody put in the comment, or somebody put in the chat, it's either I'm God or I'm a human experience, or I'm sorry, it's either I'm God living a human experience or God is the creator, right? But why, hey, what's up, Prawley? Why does it have to be one or the other, right? If God is this almighty being and can do all things, and is unimaginable, well, then why wouldn't it be possible for God to be the creator and also participate as its creation? But that's, again, this is something that I call all the time meta knowledge. These are questions that have no answers. It's impossible to know. No amount of science is going to help us understand this. The only possible way to understand it is when we die, right? If we die and there is this heaven, or we go to another dimension, or we connect with source, whatever our end is, or, if it's reincarnation, then probably not. We just don't know. It's meta knowledge. They're meta questions, which means I created this personal reality of suffering and rejoicing, pain and healing. Yeah, I mean, yes. Right? There is this idea that I subscribe to in people who are claim to be spiritual rather than religion, is that, like, because we are our own creators, that means that our life, we created it because we knew that these obstacles in our life would somehow get us over these challenges. I don't see why that's not possible. I think that that's probably, I don't know. I don't know if it's possible or true or not, but I like that idea. It's fun to think about. And if I were God, that would seem to make the most sense. You know what I mean? Why wait for heaven? Create it for yourself. Yeah. See, Alan Watts. Yes, Saint Lane. I love that you brought that up. I almost brought an Alan Watts book to the conversation because he's got a bunch of them. But yeah, somebody in the chat says that Alan Watts has a great perspective on this, and I think it's entirely true. Right? What does Alan Watts say? Alan Watts says that life is a game. We're all dancing. We're all actors, right? We're all acting. We're all pretending to be this thing. And Ram Dass says a really interesting thing too. He says we're all God and drag. We're all God and drag. And what happens is that our egos, right? And I talk about this in my book. The ego is just this creation of ideas. It's just this creation of memories, of feelings and attachments and all this stuff. And then eventually your name, right? You didn't pick your name. Somebody gave you a name. And so my name is Cameron, but I didn't pick that, right? Somebody gave that to me. But does that make me who I am, actually? No, because legally I can change my name. I can change everything about me, right? Like for some people in my chat, they're like, where'd your beard go, right? I shaved it off. I got a haircut. I'm wearing some more like nice, comfy clothes rather than like my guru beads and something more flowy. And that's the point, right? Your outside experience can be changed in any way, any shape or form, but it's what's inside, right? The presence, the awareness, right? And then this is where Eastern mysticism comes into play. There is only but now, and there ever was only now, and you are the presence that is behind the I, right? And if you think about it, it's interesting. We don't talk in the third person. We don't say Cameron wants a cheeseburger, right? We say I want a cheeseburger, right? But have you ever noticed that every single individual is saying I? Nobody is speaking in the third person. Nobody says, Charlotte wants a cheeseburger, John wants tacos. I want that, right? Because we're all speaking from an individual, singular place. We just don't realize it. And that's exactly what Alan Watts is trying to talk about. Excellent point. Love that got brought up. Thanks, Saint Lane. Dominic says, I think we're all creators. Yeah, I think you're right. Hey, let's do me a favor, chat. Can we drop some more likes? The more likes we get, the more people get brought into the conversation. It's just fascinating. I love these conversations because it's really something. It's just really something that needs to be said. You know what I mean? Like we don't talk about this often. Life is real. That's cool, right? I mean, what do you mean real? So somebody in the chat says, life is real. That's cool, right? But what does real mean? It's temporary, right? So how real could it be if it's temporary? What is real exactly? I find a hard time. I'm finding a hard time lately thinking about anything as being real. It's relatively real, right? It's relatively real because it only relatively matters as long as you're alive. But if you're no longer alive, then how real is it? What you mean things not real don't exist? Well, it's not real in the sense that it like lasts forever, that it's eternity, right? Unless we are reincarnated. No. The argument is not that life doesn't exist, but it only exists momentarily. You as a person, you as an identity, that's not real. We want it to be, right? Our ego. It's kind of like, think about a computers. Computers have the hard drive, right? They have the machinery, but then they also have software. And the computer can't go on the internet, the computer can't go on YouTube or do anything without the software, and that's us. That's our ego. It would be very hard for us to cooperate and do things together as humans if we were void of ego. If we didn't have personality, if we didn't have the ability to have conscious thought, if we didn't have all these things that make us unique and whatever, we wouldn't be the same. Be very, very different. So in a way, it is unique. It is nice. It is something that we share, and it works for now. But if you look at people like Elon Musk, you know what I mean? Like Elon Musk is a very scientific driven person, and he's pretty void of feeling for the most part. And during a Joe Rogan podcast, while he's being asked, or while Joe Rogan's asking him questions, he's literally saying like one of the things pondering my mind right now is like, should I even be doing this interview? Should I be wasting valuable time talking to you, or should I be using that time to learn how to get us to Mars, right? So that we can start a colony on Mars, right? That's somebody that is very intellectually driven within, that's void of like rational thought or emotion. They're just kind of you could even say like, that's also the same problem that psychopaths have. Narcissists, they have that same problem. Yes, I have done psychedelics. What's up? I'm pretty sure Elon's atheist. Yeah, he might be. I don't know for sure. I don't know for sure if he is or not, but it would probably make sense. But I don't know for sure. All right. So what do we want? Well, we've had a nice, good conversation so far. What else do you want to talk about? Elon believes in God. Yeah. What else do we want to talk about? Do we want to read some more text? I watched the interview. Yeah. Hey, what's up, bud? What do we want to talk about? Do you guys want me to read some more of these texts? What are you reading today? So I haven't picked anything to read yet, but I brought some books that I'm reading. I'm reading the Bhagavad Gita, the Second Coming of Christ by Yogananda, and 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. These are books that I'm reading right now. And I thought maybe I'd read some of this stuff. Actually, I do want to read you some stuff from the Bhagavad Gita, Mana. Yeah. Because the Bhagavad Gita, even though it's a Hindu classic, I promise you, you'll still hear similarities to those Gnostic texts. I love the 12 Rules for Life. Yeah, I'm almost finished with it, and I've got his second book. I'm going to read that one too. Hey, what's up? I've got a furry visitor right now. Give me 2 seconds here. Okay, so let me pull this up really quick. So I don't want to like start all over, but let me give you just a little bit of this. So keep in mind, this is kind of in a way a lot like this is in a lot of ways kind of like the Gospel of Thomas, where it's a conversation between Arjuna, which is like a royal prince. He's about to go into battle, and he's speaking to the Blessed One. But it's not. I think that it's. Yeah, he's talking to Krishna. Okay, so he's talking to Krishna, and Arjuna is worried about killing other humans. He really doesn't want to kill other humans. So he's troubled by this, and he's asking Krishna for help and what to do. So listen to this. Son of Pritha, which is again referring to Arjuna, hear this. With your mind intent on me, joined to yoga, your refuge in me, in that way you will know me completely without doubt, right? So like right off the bat, that very first one, right? With your mind intent on me, joined in yoga, right? Again, this idea of like the third eye, the pineal gland, right? Or even just your mind in general, focused on him, right? When we're reading the which one was it? The Emerald Tablets of Thoth, right? Thoth said to concentrate on your head, right? Possibly referring to your crown or pineal chakra, and then on your chest, right? Or at the seat of creation, which is your solar plexus. Now, again, it's not 100% sure that they're talking about chakras. Could just mean that they're talking about, that's just another reference, right? But these things, chakras and energy centers, these things are made reference to a lot in a lot of these old religions and old texts. So anyways, let me keep reading here. I will explain this knowledge to you in its fullness, as well as the means of discerning it. Once it is known, nothing is left to be known here on earth. Among thousands of mortals, only some strive towards fulfillment. Even among those who are striving, and among those who are fulfilled, only some truly know me. My material nature is split in 8 ways: earth, water, fire, wind, space, mind, insight, and I. And it's I, like the letter I, with quotations. So again, even just with that little spot there, again, it sounds like, again, we're talking about these things. Yeah, it is interesting, right? And this is a Hindu. So this is a Hindu poem, but it's a Hindu scripture. Lots of people in India and in the Hindu religion make lots. So this is basically like the Hindu Bible for the most part. And it goes on like that. It's basically an entire book of Krishna talking to Arjuna, and basically in the same way that Jesus was talking to John in the gospel, or the secret gospel, or secret book of John, telling Arjuna the mysteries, right? Telling him like it's okay to fight in war because all of these people are going to come back. They're all going to be reborn. Don't worry about it. Do what you're here to do. Don't be a coward. And I think that that's interesting because I have been thinking about this idea too, which is like in religion, we tend to have, like Jesus said, like turn the other cheek, right? It makes reference that it's almost like, you want to, in these religions, you want to be passive. It's not, there's no point. And in Buddhism, it's the same way. There's no point in fighting. There's no point in arguing, all of that. But I do think that there is something to say about being brave and not being a coward, right? Like not just picking non-violence just because it's the easy way. But I do think that there's no reason for violence. But I do think that we should stand up for ourselves. I think that we should be brave and not be cowards. And I think that that's died off in our generation. Not to play the man card, but I do think that men have played a heavy role in playing some very masculine roles in the last thousands of years. But men are getting kind of fundamentally shit on, in my opinion. I think they're getting shit on, and like I think it's hard because it's not just men, but it's also women, right? Everybody's kind of switched up the roles, right? Like just 70 years ago, there was a very set order of how a man and a woman was supposed to be. Not that that was the right way, right? I'm not advocating that that's the right way to do things, but no matter what happened, we've changed, right? It's no longer about a man being the household breadwinner, right? Women are equally playing a role in that, right? Like even in my situation, I work, my wife works, we work together. And arguably my wife wears the pants. She definitely rules the house. So, but what I'm saying is, you go back 2,000 years against these religions, that's not the way it was. And so I think that it's become okay for people to be less likely to defend themselves because of things that have, caused stigmas. I hope that makes sense. I hope I'm not sounding like a piece of garbage. I'm just trying to explain something that that is not easy to talk about, if that makes sense. Have you heard of the Jesuit missionary that converted to Buddhism? No. That's great though. Making sense to me, bro. Great. I'm glad at least one of you hears me out. It's always such a hard thing to talk about. Nobody wants to talk about it. But that's something that, like in this book, the 12 Rules for Life, Jordan Peterson, literally chapter 1. Let me just get into this. Literally, the first rule is, let me pull it up here. Rule 1 is stand up straight with your shoulders back. And then he goes into this, I love it, but he goes into this, to this long kind of rant about like how lobsters posture themselves for defense. Now they posture themselves to be attractive to their mates. And this is just easy, common biological nature, right? Even though we're humans and we're these advanced things, we're still animals to some degree, right? We're still animals. We still have hormones. We still have sexual attraction. We are still wanting mates. We have the ever-present need for procreation. So with all of that being said, there is still something to say about, think about this, right? Like changing your appearance, right? Has anybody ever heard the term look good, feel good, right? It is psychologically proven that if you dress in a way that you feel comfortable, right? If you feel comfortable in your body and how you look and how your appearance is, that's going to ease a certain level of anxiety that you may or may not even realize that you have, right? We all have anxiety. All of us have anxiety. But some little things that psychology and even stoicism tells us to do are simple things like make your bed, right? Take care of your appearance. Don't go out to the world looking like a slob. Stand up straight. Roll your shoulders back. Look like you're proud to be here. Look like you want to be here. Because if you convince your other people that you want to be here, then it becomes easier to convince yourself that you want to be here. And the fundamental problem I think humans have right now is they don't want to be here. Does anybody got an opinion on that? I don't think humans want to be here right now. We're all schizophrenic. Yeah, I think to a degree we are all schizophrenic or have levels of schizophrenia, but that's the mind, you know. The problem is that I probably shouldn't say this, but I often wonder if schizophrenia is just maybe can be cured by learning how to use the mind more, to use the mind better. I don't know. I'm not a psychiatrist. I want to understand it better. That's why I'm reading about psychiatry and psychology. But you know, for most other people, like, you know, let's take a step back from schizophrenia and talk about anxiety. We can cure anxiety. We have to cure anxiety by using the mind. The mind is this beautiful evolutionary tool that we have, but we are so scared of it. We're scared of it because we don't know how to use it. We don't know how to think, right? When we have scary big thoughts, we don't realize, oh, hey, that's just a thought. That's not real, right? Like, do you ever get yourself wrapped up into a scenario from overthinking, and you start really thinking about this one scenario, and then you basically bring it to life in your mind, and then you start feeling the anxiety in your chest. Maybe your heart starts beating faster because you're thinking about something scary, or you get that feeling in your stomach drops because you're worried. We do that to ourselves. And what's ironic is, I don't even know what a percentage is, but probably half the time, it's not even of anything real. It's of stuff that we're doing to ourselves, right? It's creating situations in our mind that aren't real. Yeah, I agree. Somebody in the chat says our brains are arguably the most complicated thing in the universe, and I agree. But I think that even though it's complicated, we need to understand it, right? Which is again this idea of trying to be balanced between a spiritual life and an intellectual life, because what we know about psychology is going to help us understand the mind, which is in parallel to Buddhism. Everything about Buddhism is about having the right mindset, right? Things like right speech, this idea of right speech, which is when you're speaking to people, make sure that you're speaking to people with love and speaking to people from a neutral place instead of speaking to people when you're angry, right? Nobody is going to get anywhere if you start a conversation by being angry or resentful, right? Everybody knows that, but we don't think about it. Exactly. And somebody else in the chat says words cast spells. Exactly. Words are witchcraft, magic. We're not witchcraft. Words are magic. Let me put it that way. Hitler convinced a whole country that genocide was okay. Oh, spelling. Damn, that's a good one. I never thought about that. Somebody in the chat says, hence spelling, right? Like the idea of spelling, it is casting spells. Yeah, I am sold on that one, 100%. I mean, just look at our news media, right? Like whether you're for or against them, look at how they say things, right? They could sell you fucking ketchup popsicles if they can convince you that it's good for your health, right? Yeah, but we got to learn how to be wizards. Yeah, I agree. I think that it's a matter of both the yin and the yang, right? In this situation, yin is spirituality, yang is intellect. We have to learn how to use both. Science is good, but we need to understand that science is not everything. Oh, don't pay attention to that comment, guys. Sorry. For people watching on YouTube, obviously, I'm sure you know, on these TikTok lives, there's lots of spam and trolls in here. But yeah, so I think we have to balance our spiritual lives with our intellectual lives. I don't think that we can learn everything we want to learn through math and science, as much as people like to think you can. I don't think it's possible, because there are math equations that don't have answers. There are scientific questions that don't have answers. What happens when we die? There are no answers, right? Religion tries to answer those questions, but again, I think that all of it being said is just another way of painting the picture. They're all puzzle pieces, it's all poetry, and it's all philosophy. It's all pointing us into the same direction. But what I will say is, with all of that, I am all for spiritual growth academic, intellectual growth. But we also have to remember to live our lives, coming from the place of Taoism, the way of things, right? The more we try to make life harder, which is what we do often, we make life harder, then it becomes unpleasant. Um, Life becomes unpleasant because we don't have goals, because um, we don't have things to keep us busy, and we don't have a reason to be here, right? I said that before. I think part of the problem is that a lot of humans don't want to be here right now. I mean, and I can't blame them. It's hard. This life is hard, but that's the whole point, is that this life is learning how to get through, right? This is the hardest thing you'll do. Living your life is the hardest thing you will do. And so it's up to us to get through it which way we can, right? It's also called the hero's journey, right? Um, we are on that journey. Life is hard for every single person, even rich people, right? Even rich people have a hard life at times. Um, there's always something that we have to overcome, something always that we have to change about ourselves in order to overcome obstacles, to defeat the enemy, right? Whatever it is. And that's what I like. I think a truly enlightened being is somebody who is spiritual and also intellectual. That's why I think the philosophers of days old, I think that they had really some great insight, and we can learn a lot from them. I have an unhealthy obsession with John Malkovich. Preach. All right. What else we got? Any questions in the chat? Have you read Nietzsche? No, I have not yet. I've perused Nietzsche, but I need to. My thing though is like, I need to read it because it is a great scholarly thing, but I am not like a nihilist, right? So like sometimes reading things about psychology and philosophy is hard because there's a lot of psychologists and philosophers who don't think God is real. And I do. So I float in the middle. So I don't always agree. I mean, even things about Jordan Peterson's book, I love this book, but even things in there, I don't 100% agree with. But again, like I said, it's just fixing the puzzle pieces. Did you get to the moon research yet? What moon research? Existentialism? Yeah, you'll dig Zoroastrianism. Is that what you're trying to say? Genealogy of morals. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I will check that out. Yeah. And Jordan Peterson's podcast, they had a great conversation with two other. Do you study the Kabbalah? Yeah, I have studied the Kabbalah. It's interesting. Have you read the Bible, all of it? No, I have not read all of the Bible. I've read the four Gospels, Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John. I've read things like Genesis, but I cannot say that I have read the whole thing. I've read what I thought was valuable to me at the time. But I eventually will have to read the whole damn thing. But yeah, hopefully that answers your questions. Have you read the Satanic Bible by Anton LaVey? No, I have not. Maybe I should. For anybody watching on YouTube, I'm a student of history and religion. And this is what I do. I read a lot of religious texts and I try to make comparisons and show how they're similar, but also explore their beautiful individuality. You should? Okay. I'll check it out. Okay. What questions do we have? So, anyways, back to Jordan Peterson's podcast and morals, right? Basically what he said, I don't want to get into a long chat about it. Basically what he says is that one of the people they were talking to was talking about how religion is basically the reason people have morals, right? But then another comment that was made is that religion was created to ease the anxiety of death. Now, I think both those statements are true, but I don't think that doesn't mean that the religion isn't true. We look for answers, right? We are looking for answers, and sometimes we find them, right? We find answers in science. It's not like all science is wrong, right? Some science might be wrong, but we do things to kind of figure it out. You know what I mean? Like we have methods, we make a hypothesis, we do things to figure these things out. We have math problems. We come up with an equation to solve those math problems. So when it comes to religion, I think the mystical experiences that people have, and possibly even the psychedelic experiences people have, I believe that those are pieces of the puzzle to understanding divinity or God. That's again my personal belief. It's not what everybody believes, but um, yeah, it's interesting. Nothing matters. Our thoughts create our reality, and we must be aware of that. Yeah, sure. I don't think that that's wrong. But if nothing saying nothing matters and our thoughts creating reality, that's not the same thing. Because if your thoughts create reality, which is fine, I would agree with that. Um, if you're a nihilist, or if you're somebody that has no hope or no reason to live, then that's destructive, right? So I do think that some things do matter, right? And that's where psychology comes into play. Jordan Peterson talks about all the time that we need to have goals. We need to have things that motivate us to want to wake up in the morning and to live. Because if we don't have those things, our life will be short. Will be short and miserable, and we won't achieve anything. So it's not that I disagree with you. I agree and disagree with you. I think that here's a good example. Here's something that doesn't matter. People who label you, right? These ideas that we're a Republican or Democrat or left wing or right wing, right? Those are labels, and those don't matter. Your job doesn't really matter. You can get another one. Going to school doesn't really matter. Not if it doesn't make you happy. Living in America doesn't really matter. Only if you like what is in America. That is not the end-all be-all truth or reality. Truth is relative. Just like reality we talked about earlier, just like reality is relative. It's relative to whoever is experiencing that, right? You as the individual are your own universe. You are at the center of your own universe. This is all about you. You are playing out this role, this person. And as that person, like, it's up to you to make certain decisions and have certain feelings about things. So ultimately you get to choose. It's about you. Jordan Peterson is a man of truth doesn't mean anyone else isn't. He's just an idol. Sure. Sure. All sickness comes from some form of not loving the self. Yeah, I think that that's true too. That's actually going to be the topic of my next book. Basically talking about self-love and compassion for other people. That's what's missing. That's what we need to kind of fix our society, in my opinion. Society is the illusion. I agree. Maya is the distraction. You are right. Be wise in the world. You're right. Talk about sin. Yeah, I think, well, here's the question, right? What does the word actually mean? Sin, right? When you translate that word, what it actually means is to miss the mark, to fall short, right? It doesn't mean something that you do that makes you go to hell, which is what some people believe it to be. To sin means to miss the mark, to fall short of the glory of God, right? That's the highest mark. But in essence, what it means is to fall short, to miss the mark. And that's less scary than the way that we say it, right? Is it possible that what it really means is that when you sin, you're not being your best self? Right? Is that possible? Like, sinning means that you're not your best self. You're not doing what you should be doing. And that's, Jordan Peterson has a really great quote about that. He says, and it's like on his like social media stuff. He says, you are not at your best and you know it. I think that's true for a lot of people. It's true for me some days. I've tried to adopt this idea of being a self-realized being and being wholly spiritual, and connected in religion, but then also striving to be a better person every day and striving to be more intellectual and more connected. So it's hard. About purity. Is purity real? Well, okay, you might not like my opinion on this, but yes. But here's the thing. We're all pure. It's all pure. And why is that? Let's think about this, right? People who want to argue about good and evil, well, here's the thing. If God created everything, that means God created good and evil, right? So is it possible that God created evil with a purpose, right? And let's take away those names. Let's stop calling it good and evil. Let's call it yin and yang, right? Yin can't survive without yang. in this third dimensional world that we are existing in, this plane of existence, we have to have that balance. For as much good as there is, there's always going to be evil. For as much evil there is, there's going to be that much good. So my thing is that I think we're all pure all the time. You're already pure. The difference is that our mind, this thing that we don't have control over, it labels things as good and evil, mainly because it's something we don't like. And there's always a reason for not liking something, right? Like, I don't like grilled cheese sandwiches because I had one when I was 5 and it made me throw up or something, right? Like, so that's my reason for not liking grilled cheese. But really what I'm saying is grilled cheese is evil, right? Because that's basically the same thing. I don't like it, so it's evil. Now, we could take this to an extreme, like something like murder, right? But here's the thing. If nobody ever told you that murder was wrong, would it still have the same impact, right? If you grew up and your parents never told you that murder was wrong, would it still be the same thing? I don't know. I'm not saying whether it is or isn't. I'm just saying it's something to think about. Don't we have control over it? You'd like to think that you have control over it. But tell me, how many times do you think you have control over yourself, but then the minute that you're in gridlock or in traffic, you start cussing people out or flipping people off, honking your horn, right? It happens all the time. I mean, even me still to this day, right? When my 12-year-old stepson, when he's getting lippy with me, I'm trying to remain a peaceful and calm spiritual person, but sometimes he pisses me off and sometimes my emotions get the best of me. The difference is that what we do have control over is our ability to recognize what we have. And the more that we train ourselves to become self-realized like that, the more we train ourselves to become conscious like that, the more likely we are to have a better handle over it. It's helpful to label someone as Ted Bundy as evil instead of seeing everyone as pure. Is helpful to label someone as Ted Bundy as evil instead of seeing everyone as pure. I think you might need to mellow. Can you rephrase that? I'm not sure what your point is there. I want to answer your question, but I want to make sure I answer it right. And it's hard because what people don't want to believe is that murder somehow has a purpose. But let me put it to you this way. How many people commit murder, go to jail, and while they're in jail, they find God, right? This might sound crazy, but what if that's what that person needed? What if that person needed that very extreme life path for them to end up believing in God? Is that possible? And if that's what happens, isn't that part of the plan? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Shucks. Yeah. Does that make it right? No, it's just my opinion. It's just something to think about. I don't know that is exactly what it is. What about the guy who get whacked? What about the guy who get whacked? You mean like what about the person who gets murdered? Is that what you mean? Like, what did they do to deserve that? They get out and forget God real quick. Some, sure. Definitely. You could say that like some people are quick to forget their God and forget that stuff. Yeah, in that scenario. Yeah, so, then the question was like, what about the person who gets murdered, right? What is their life path? Well, maybe they already completed it and them getting murdered was just that was the last little bit, right? But think about this. If the person getting murdered by somebody who needed to commit murder and go to prison so that they could find God, isn't that still a blessing? Could we see that as a blessing if that's really what is happening? What if some people have to sin in order for others to learn the mistake without making it themselves? Yeah, sure. Yeah. No, not like sacrifice. Not like sacrifice, but a blessing, right? Because who thinks that dying is bad? We do, right? Right? Like, do you think God sees dying as bad? Or because God is in this place that knows all things, right? Like, sees why people die and knows that they don't really die, right? Like, only your physical body dies, not your soul, not your essence or your being. Just your physical time here dies, right? But if it's in a way that provides somebody with a catalyst to finding God, then, aren't you doing a good thing, maybe? I don't know. What about all the children who suffer? Yeah. How does that come to? Okay. Yeah, you're not wrong. I don't have all the answers. If you think about it, right? Nobody knows why God does the things that it does, right? Nobody understands the universe totally. Nobody understands why the divine does what it does, right? All we do know is that we are here, and we're here for a limited amount of time, and that everybody suffers, everybody gets sick, and everybody dies. And in the same way that the person in prison had to do something horrible to wind up believing in God, then in the same way, are those children who are going hungry, are they not teaching us? Are we not learning something about this, right? Like, are we not learning about the starving people in Africa or in other countries, right? Or the starving people in our own country? Eventually, the suffering of others will get to a place where we have to do something about it, right? Yeah, and again, right? Like, there has to be a certain level of chaos for there to be growth. I think that's what we need to remember, is that, like, we all need a certain level of chaos in our lives. That chaos is the catalyst for us to develop. So, yes, bad things happen. They've been starving for a long time. You're not wrong. But I mean, all humans have been suffering for a long time. The whole existence of humanity has suffered for a long time. The children of Africa today, it was the Jews of Egypt, thousands of years ago, and Cain and Abel before them, or who knows, whoever it was at the beginning. The poor Neanderthals and early Homo erectus that had to hunt to survive and to chase down jaguars, if that's how it happened, if that's how the story actually happened. Right. And so Saint Lane says a forest burns and a new one grows, right? And then what is that symbolism for, right? The phoenix. Death and rebirth. Isn't that the trial? Yeah. Yeah, right. And earlier I called it the hero's journey, right? Or we're all on the hero's journey. We're all experiencing this reality in a different way that we need to experience it in, so that we can develop spiritually, right? I mean, that's my opinion. Not everybody will agree with that. Anybody else? Have you read that Kafka story about execution machine? No, I have not. Most people I come across seems to lack depth, but I can't stop growing. Yeah, I understand. I feel that. Have you had any divine experiences? Yes, I have. Yes, I have. I mean, really, anytime I did psychedelics, I felt like that was a divine experience. I had one near-death experience where I fell off a 60-foot rappel tower, and I was outside of my body for a little while, and that was pretty crazy. I didn't realize what it was at the time, but then later when I started learning about religion and learning about reincarnation and these near-death experiences and stuff like that, I realized what had actually happened to me. So yeah, I've had some pretty wild things happen to me. Nothing I can prove, you know what I mean? Like, nothing tangible that people could be like, yes, this is the answer. This guy has all the truth. Again, I just have bits and pieces of the puzzle, But I mean, again, your question was, have you had any divine experiences? I mean, in my opinion, I think all things are divine. I think everything has divinity in it, The question is, were you just looking over your body, or did you travel? Basically, as I was falling down 60 feet, I blacked out before I hit the ground, and then I gained consciousness, but I was void of a body. It was just being able to see. Basically, I had no perception of a body. I was able to see, and I was watching myself fall the rest of the way down. I saw myself fall down the rest of the way, and then when I hit the ground, then somebody carried me away, and then I woke up from that, and I gained consciousness there. And then so somebody says, what do you yourself see God as? I see God as energy. I see God as consciousness. I think God is something that we can't explain. And then Mr. Cisco, what's up? Are you a Hindu or a Buddhist? Um, I typically consider myself a spiritual person, but I've been lately trying to put myself into a category. And if I had to pick something, I would say I'm a Christian Zen Buddhist. But I love all of the religions. I love Hinduism. I love Taoism. Um, I like it all. I want to understand it better. But if I had to pick something, I would say probably like a Christian Zen Buddhist. And like I said, I'm not just all about religion either. I love philosophy. I love stoicism. I love psychology. I think it's all important. I think we need to have a really well-balanced diet of this material to make sense of it and not just get lost in la la land. I see a lot of people who are spiritual people. And again, I was listening to this on the Jordan Peterson podcast, and they were talking about how new age people that are just all about spirituality, basically anything goes. And then that's why you see these people that have like a quabash of like learning magic, and they think that they're like wizards from Harry Potter. And then you have this like mixture of paganism and then a mixture of like the Kabbalah. But like none of these people actually know anything about any of these individual things. They know like little bits about the Kabbalah. They know little bits about paganism. And they just kind of exist. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I don't know that is always the correct way. I think we need, like for me, right? It took me a long time to understand where I stood with religion and spirituality. And sometimes I still struggle with it. Sometimes I still don't know where I stand. But as a Christian Buddhist, what I'm accepting is I believe that Jesus was a real person. I do believe in a God of some kind. But I think Jesus was not the person that Christianity portrays him to be. And I believe in Buddhism, especially Zen Buddhism, because I understand enlightenment. And the philosophy of Zen is very similar to Taoism, which is just to live life. You're an actor. Just keep acting, keep dancing, keep enjoying life. The principles that Buddhism provides us, like the 8 Noble Fold Path, the 4 Noble Truths, and things like that, those give us a blueprint. It gives us a blueprint for how to live, how to be kind to each other, right? Like Confucianism, right? The golden rule, treat others as you want to be treated. And that's the fundamentals behind Buddhism. What is he then? Are you asking like, what is Jesus? Buddhism will send you to the flames. Oh my God, get the fuck out of here. Send your mom to the flames. The first your mom joke of the night. YouTube, basically what happens on TikTok in my chat when somebody starts bringing in like bigotry or like religious like condemnation or craziness like that, I always answer with your mom jokes. My chat's used to it. Jesus. I think Jesus was like a philosopher. I think he was like a guru or a Zen master. I think that he had some knowledge that the rest of the world didn't quite have. Yeah, we're streaming on YouTube. I think what he was a really great individual, a really loving, kind individual that we can set that as a standard to live by. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Just be a good person. Be kind to others, He spoke in mystical ways, but it wasn't that hard to understand. Love people. Feed people. That's how we can fix the world, right? If the world wasn't in such a mess, then I wouldn't have to focus so much on academics and intellectual stuff. I'd love to just be a hippie and just do nothing, you know what I mean? Just kind of be in the Tao all the time. But I've found that I can't be that because this society needs intellectuals as well. And so I have to have balance, because for what I need to do in this life, I need to have a balance of intellectual, a place from an academic standpoint for people to understand. Because not everybody gets the spiritual or religious stuff. From God or God? What do you mean from God or God? Jesus was a real historical person for sure, but was he a deity? No, I mean, I don't know. Maybe he was. Other people said he was. He never said he was. He never said he was a deity, right? I mean, who is Buddha, right? Buddha did some pretty mystical shit, I don't know. Son or God. Oh, son or God. I do think he was God, but I don't think that he is the only person incarnate on this earth as God. I think we are too. I think the rest of us, I think you, me, everybody in this chat, we're all God wearing drag. That's just my personal opinion. On my YouTube channel, I interviewed, for my podcast, I interviewed a philosophy and religious studies professor, Peter Boland. He's on YouTube as well. And we had a great conversation about this. We talked about the Gospel of Thomas. We talked about the parallels of Jesus to Hinduism and Buddhism. And there's some stuff there. He did not necessarily agree with me that Jesus went to India or Tibet. He thinks it would have been really hard for Jesus to do back then, but I don't think so, especially since I've been reading about the Silk Road. The Middle East would have had a path to that part of the world. What if God made us in his image, then became that image as Jesus, as God in the flesh? Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I think. I think that's exactly what you just said there. Do you believe in the concept of the journey of the hero, and should people embark on the rites of passage? Sure. But I don't know, are you referring to like the occultic kind of style? I don't know that I agree with all things occult, but back in medieval times, the Knights of the Round Table called this mission going for the Holy Grail. The quest for the Grail was really the quest for self-consciousness, enlightenment. It's the same thing. So God Almighty died on the cross? Sure. Just like God dies all the time, all day long. But God as itself? No. God as its manifestation into man. But again, to be fair for everybody, I don't know that with certainty. That's just what my personal belief is, I do the best with the understanding that I have. I do the best with the knowledge that I have. It's not perfect. Yes, but we are not gods. Sure. Maybe not. I don't know. I guess it just depends what you call God. Like what do you have to be a god? Do you have to shoot lightning bolts out of your fingertips to be considered God? We're created in the image of God, right? We are created in his likeness, right? The Father dwells within you. I'm pretty sure Jesus said that too, right? So somebody's asking me, do you believe the nation of Israel was chosen by God? I don't know. I don't know about that. Again, that's meta knowledge. There's no way for me to know that for sure. I have no idea. Maybe. There must be a heavenly throne that's sitting the Ancient of Days. There must be a heavenly throne that's sitting the Ancient of Days. Why did Bodhidharma come from the West? Bodhidharma come from the West. What do you mean it came from the West? That seems interesting. You don't mean like North America, do you? Because it didn't start there. How would one embark on a quest in modernity? What do you mean by modernity? All the prophets' visions of God is pretty spectacular. Yeah, sure. No argument there, right? None of these things ultimately prove or disprove the existence of anything. It's all, again, like I said at the beginning, it's all poetry. It's all philosophy. We have to determine for ourselves what's true and what's not true. And we do the best that we can. All right, team. What do you think? I think we are going to shut it down for the night and then come back tomorrow. Does anybody have any last minute things they want to say? Okay. Oh, okay. Secular age is where the supernatural is replaced by Platonic model. I mean, the mythical aspects are gone. Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah, Spicy, I'll check it out. But hey, let's go tomorrow. We'll probably go live like 1:30, 2 p.m. Central Time. Does that work for everybody? 1:30, 2 p.m. Central Time. We'll go live there. I'm going to shut down the live stream. Hey, YouTube, see you later. Have a good one, everybody. We'll see you later.